You are listening to the Innovating Cannabis podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel. In addition to producing and hosting this podcast, I'm a freelance writer and editor for the Cannabis Industry Journal. What does it take to ship cannabis around the world? My guest today, Yoram Eshel, is CEO of Cannabilog, a company leading the way in global cannabis transportation and logistics. After a long career in the pharmaceutical industry, managing the movement of products across continents, Yoram came out of retirement to apply his expertise in the rapidly evolving cannabis industry to launch Cannabilog. In this episode, Yoram shares his playbook for building a compliant, efficient, and scalable supply chain for global cannabis import and export trade. Let's welcome Yoram to the show.
So I just thought if you could just give us an overview of what Cannabilog is, and then we can just start from there and what the services are and how long you've been around and how did you get started in the cannabis business?
Okay. So up until about 6.5 years ago, I was the head of global supply chain and logistics for Teva Pharmaceuticals. For 14 years, I managed the whole logistic operations of Teva. As you know, Teva is the largest generic company in the world for many years, 85 production sites, more than 100 countries. So it's a big supply chain. It's a big logistic operations. Okay, so I'm coming from the pharma industry. 14 years I managed that for Teva. So from that you can learn two things. One, that I didn't sleep too much for 14 years. And the second thing is that I'm coming from the pharma industry. Okay, I've been there. You asked about, cold chain and everything. I've been there where the whole thing about supply chain and about logistic management became part of the pharma regulations, being audited about it, there were new regulations coming in, so I had to take all the organization and put them under those regulations and requirements and so on. So I retired from Teva, looked around, and then I found myself, I started to talk with people about medical cannabis. Now, if you go 6-7 years ago, you know that everybody was busy with licenses, with unclear regulations. It was just the beginning of the whole thing. Nobody knew what to do with it. Nobody was really sure. Then later on, a lot of money came in as investment. It was a big hype. And I looked at it and said, okay, you know what? I can take all my knowledge and experience and connections and everything that I know from Teva and bring it into the medical cannabis industry. Can tell you that when I started to talk with people about logistics, about international trade of cannabis, import, export, nobody understood anything, okay? Most of the people were dealing about growing, manufacturing, in those areas. So, and how many chances in your life you have when you have a full, completely new industry coming on and that was never before, and Back then also Israel was kind of a leader in the market, in the research, in the science of medical cannabis, Professor Meshulam and others. So it was a lot to do with something really new that nobody really knew what's going on. And this is the place where I like to be. So took my own knowledge, experience from the pharma world into this industry. That's the beginning.
It's perfect. I know Israel's been a big leader. I've actually interviewed, and I want to talk to him again, is Daddy Mary.
Yes, of course, I know Daddy personally.
Yeah. He's great. So I'm always watching his stuff. And so is Israel exporting flower or?
So amazingly enough, in the beginning of 2018, there was a government decision in Israel to encourage the export of medical cannabis. But not even one leaf left the country, okay? Actually, we started with import. Surprisingly enough, we started to import At the end of 2019, we started to import a lot of products, mainly from Canada, from Portugal, from some other countries into Israel. About 50% of the Israeli consumption of medical cannabis was imported. And the reason was that, in one hand, the local growers and the local industry could not, how should I say, could not conform with the standards, as well as the quality and the THC levels and so on and so forth. So we started to import a lot. Now, these days, in the last year, we are exporting more and more. Yeah, we are exporting flowers. Still in Israel, we don't have EU GMP facilities, so we have to export it to manufacturing sites in Europe, and then we're sending it to European market. We do sell to Australia as well, to the UK, to Germany, to some other countries. So Israel is exporting flowers, mainly flowers, but also some oils.
I'm surprised that it's
And we
not.
also have a very advanced product, which is Psyche, which is a very unique inhaler. I don't know if you ever heard about them.
What
Should
is
be
it?
very interesting for you. Psyche is SYKE. You can look at it later. Psyche is an Israeli innovative product that was developed and manufactured in Israel. And this is a metered inhaler, a very special unit, medical device, that now is exporting it, but also here in the country, a lot of people after the war with PTSD, with a lot of issues. So it goes a lot to veterans. So it will be interesting for you to know them.
Yeah, it's
I
an
can look you
inhaler.
to the managing director. It's a very unique inhaler. Look at it at the website, and then we can talk
Yeah.
about
Okay. Okay. That
it. So we
sounds.
are also exporting this device as well.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Can you just walk us through what the main steps if somebody came to you and wanted to start importing, exporting, what things have to be considered on that pharmaceutical level, like regulatory wise? The only thing I really know is you do have to be EU GMP certified, which I'm really surprised that Israel is not, just because you are so medical focused.
Okay, so just that you know,
Yeah.
that for the pharma world, Israel has an agreement with the EU for mutual recognition. So all the pharma sites in Israel that has an Israeli GMP are also certified in the EU. Okay,
Oh,
beside cannabis. Okay, beside cannabis production sites. We do have high level of, we call it GAP, but it's very similar to GACP. We have very high standards in the Israeli industry, but they're not EU GMP certified. Okay.
okay. But they're
So now
above.
let's talk about the larger picture of international trade of cannabis. When it comes to that, there are three main issues that need to be taken very, very good care of. The first one is the regulations. Okay, surprisingly enough, regulations are always different between the importing country and the exporting country. There's nothing like in the pharma world, you come to the EU, there's one set of regulation. No way. Each country by itself has its own regulations. As you know, some countries allow import, some countries doesn't allow import. Canada, for instance, they allow export or not. Regulations is a very big thing. It's not just yes and no question, it's also how. It's also a matter of which products. Some will allow flowers, some will allow oils, some will allow genetics or other things. So in any case, regulations are the big thing. And if you look at Google and you ask cannabis regulations, every week we will get something else. Okay, different maps. Legal or not legal? Medical is legal, but recreation is not legal. And so on and so forth. Regulations are a big, big thing. Okay. On top of it, because we are talking about narcotics, it requires licenses, all set of licenses. sometimes even licenses to breed. I mean, to grow, to manufacture, to store, to import, to export, everything requires licenses. Everything is under, under the narcotic laws, under the narcotic regulations. You know that, especially in the US, we'll talk about the US a bit later, very complicated. Surprisingly enough, or maybe not, it's changing all the time. Look at what happened in Germany, look at Portugal, look at Israel, look at Australia, look at other countries, look at the US. It's changing all the time. So if you want to deal with international trade of cannabis, you have to know the regulations, and you have to understand that whatever you know today will be changed in a while. Look at Thailand. Everybody today is looking at Thailand because they have very good genetics. They allow export. Up until 2-3 months ago, the local market was booming. Then the new government came in and said, no, just medical. So now all the Thai manufacturing and growers want to export, but they don't have the right certification to do that. They have just local GACP, which is not accepted in Europe. So without going into too much details, regulatory environment or regulations are a moving target and are the most important thing, because the last thing you want to do is to cut corners, because then you're getting into troubles, and we don't have to talk about it. So adhering to the regulations, this is the most important thing. I don't know if you know, but if you export cannabis products to another country and you cannot clear it on the other side, it will go to destruction. There's no way back. Yeah, no way back because of licenses and everything. So you better know what to do.
God, that's huge.
That's a lot of issues around that. The second thing, which, for instance, if you go to Canada, okay, but maybe some states in the US. The second thing about cannabis, medical cannabis, it's a medicine. It's exactly like Tylenol or paracetamol or any other medicine that you take in the US or anywhere else around the world. So governments are dealing with medical cannabis as medicines. Remember, medical cannabis is not exactly a medicine because it didn't go through the whole process of registration, but they require to register the product, and they will consider it exactly as any other pharmaceutical product, which means that you have to adhere to all those pharma-specific regulations like quality management, GDP, it calls GDP, good distribution practices, temperature management, data logger, the whole thing. The same way I shipped hundreds of thousands of shipments every year of Teva, this is the same way you have to do medical cannabis, which means that at the other side will sit a QP, we call it qualified person, that will have to approve the products to the market. And if they are not adhering to all the quality requirements, it's not going to work. Even us, as a logistic service provider, we are being audited, and we have to adhere to all the logistic requirements, the EU GDP and other requirements to ship and to manage logistics of cannabis products. So I'm saying it because, for instance, in Canada, okay, I'm just saying as an example, Canada, a lot of the local market is recreation, right? So the way of thinking, it's about recreation products. When it comes to medical, all of a sudden, whoa, we need temperature control vehicles. We need to pack it. We need to label it. We need to do a different thing. And it is something that requires some training and some understanding, because the world, beside Canada and I think 25 states in the US.
Medical versus. I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Medical is 35 or something, but recreation, never mind the number. Nonetheless, beside that, all the other places in the world, it's a medical product. Germany, Australia, Israel, medical product. It's not even close to recreation. By the way, recreation in many countries is either not legal or requires special licensing or any other thing. So the issue of quality, beside the regulation, the issue of quality, of pharmaceutical level of quality, is a must in this industry. And people tend to either not to know it or know it, and the big companies are already there. You can see quality managers, you can see quality teams, exactly as the pharma world. Exactly.
Yeah.
The last thing is all about execution. Okay, so you have your licenses, the import permit, the export permit, quality system in place. Now you have to execute, right? So how you pack it, how you label it, what kind of documents you need, what kind of service, everything has to be done with temperature control packages and temperature control vehicles and flights and airports or domestic or land transportation. The whole thing around execution is a big thing, okay? And I told you before that you have to build the whole chain completely by the regulations, completely by the pharma grade or the pharma level, and execute against it, because you don't want to fail on the logistics side. You may have to make sure that you are maintaining the integrity of the product. All products are temperature control. We'll talk about it in a minute. So it requires a lot of understanding how to execute, from packing, pickup, delivery, flights, airports, police, and so on. There are some countries that we're not even picking up, or we're not moving one leaf if we don't have armed escort together with the vehicle, if we don't have any other special measures to make sure that it will arrive safely. There's a lot of issues around the execution. Another thing you have to remember, that when you talk about cannabis logistic or cannabis import and export, you have to look at the whole range of cannabis products. Let's start with genetics, seeds, tissue cultures, clones, cuttings, whatever, are requiring a specific solution. Clones, cannabis clones, genetics, okay? And we are moving dozens of thousands of clones. I don't know if you know, most of them are unrooted. So from the moment you cut them from the mother until it has to go into water because it doesn't have roots, between 3 to 4 days. If not, they are dead. So you have to control the minute that you cut them all the way through with the special packaging, with the special, put it on a flight, bring it to the other side, clear it out of customs and authorities, and bring it to the other side safely in order to get into water and keep the cuttings alive. So it's a special logistics, special thing. Again, regulations, quality, execution. This is one hand. In the middle, you have the products, right? Bulk flowers, packed flowers, oils, some other products. Each one of them is a bit different from the way you pack them, from the way you manage the whole logistics solution. And then you have the whole area of extracts, distillate, azulate, dronabinol, all kinds of extracts that you ship in different ways. And there is a market for there. Sorry, go on.
I just want to ask, there's so many questions in here. I really hate to interrupt you because I know you.
Stop me if you have. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, because you're on a roll and I don't want to interrupt you because you're just telling us such great stuff. But I've been reading that different, like flour versus oils and even different concentrates require different temperature storage. And they're talking about here in the United States, what are the standards for this? What is the standards for, like you're saying, the genetics for the flour, and as far as preservation, keeping, is that a thing for you?
Okay, so most of the regulatory authorities in most of the countries are requiring 15 to 25 Celsius degrees for the cannabis product, which is, we call it in the pharma world, we call it controlled room temperature, CRT. And this is the requirement from many regulatory agencies all around the world, okay? So this is it. In some countries, it will be more like 20 degrees, more or less, plus minus 3 degrees, but most of the countries will be 15 to 25. By the way, 15 to 25 is a tricky range of temperature. In some countries, they call it ambient temperature. Wrong. You don't want to put it in the ambient temperature, right? Wrong. It's called control room temperature. The reason is if you need to send the products in a cool product, right? Let's say injection. All injections must be between 2 to 8 degrees. So you put it in a special box, you put some, you call it
Yeah,
ice
cold
or
packs or
whatever
something.
packs, or we call it PCNs, never mind. So you put something in order to preserve the temperature. With 15 to 25, you may use kind of expensive packages and special air containers and so on, which are really expensive. But usually airports and on the tarmac and everything, if it doesn't have a protection around it, then you'll have temperature excursion. So one of our jobs is to keep the temperature in the right way. So for each shipment, we're doing what we call a route risk assessment. We assess the route. For instance, a lot of shipments are going from Canada to Australia. I hope you learned in your geography lessons that in Canada and Australia are two opposite seasons, right? Winter
Oh,
in Canada is summer in Australia and the other way around. So when you ship Canada to Australia, you better watch because it's winter here and it's summer there, and you need to preserve 15 to 25 degrees. So there you go with the just, as a challenge. So
yeah.
in to talk about temperature management and so on. So there are several means how to do it. For instance, we will pick up and delivery just with temperature control vehicles. Okay, we will take airlines has a special products or service for pharma products. So we are using just pharma grade airline services, which means that they will be stored at the airport in the right temperature. Then they will be loaded, last, unloaded first, go to the chamber on the other side. So maintaining the whole chain under those temperature requirements, it's a long lecture, but at the end of the day, these are the challenges that you have to make sure that you are meeting. And again, local markets, for instance, the US, okay? So locally, for recreation stuff, to the best of my knowledge, they're shipping it with maybe regular trucks. They depend on the, on the outside the temperature, and they're doing well. But when it comes to medical, no way, Jose. You have to keep it. It's very simple. You put a data logger. If you have an excursion, products are rejected. So
Wait, what did you say? If you do what?
you put a data logger, a temperature logger
Yeah.
on the pallet, on the goods. You read it at the end. If there is an extreme temperature excursion, products are rejected.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole problem with the US, and I just actually released this big article about how if the US wants to play in the international market, we've got to become more GMP certified and think in that mentality, and we're not in that mentality. So I totally understand that whole thing, but there's a
I
couple
must tell you that in the pharma world, there is a lot of attention to the quality side. Okay, FDA requirements, a lot of attention to that. I can tell you that, since I was in Teva. But yes, I think that the European authorities are more strict and are more on top of those issues than in the US.
Mm.
Yeah, I believe
Well,
so.
yeah, I mean, you're definitely anyone I speak to over there, says it just as strongly as you do. We are medical and we mean it. Like we're a medical
Yeah.
market, and this is we're setting up this infrastructure. And I've been banging that drum from over here to say we're not going to make it if we don't, because I
Yeah.
mean, we're not even setting up for the US, GMP certified. Sure, there are some, but it's not the mentality that we have here.
No, I
So
think that the production sites in the US are GMP, but they're not EU GMP.
yeah,
Okay.
so we couldn't come in we couldn't come in if we were GM.
I think that, I think that the difference is not that big.
Yeah,
Okay. Some production sites, the issue is that you have to bring someone from Europe to audit you under the EU GMP certification. So it's a lot of, I don't know, but it is possible to do. And there are EU GMP facilities, more on the pharma side, less on the cannabis. We'll talk about the US, but in Canada, there are already few production sites that are EU GMP, okay, in Canada. I'm talking about cannabis production sites. So they have EU GMP certification. Not a lot, but few.
Okay.
In Canada.
I heard from somebody, I don't know if this is true, that cannabis law does not allow for cold storage. And, like if they're selling, so in other words, the Canadian government you can only distribute through the Canadian government, like they're in charge of distribution.
It's the, how do you call it? The regional government or something like that.
Regional, right. So
Yeah.
I guess if like a Tilray or one of those guys, they have their own production and they're probably doing it correctly because they're obviously exporting a lot to the and out there. But the Canadian government supposedly because they didn't want to add any cost to the government controlling the cannabis distribution by having to put cold storage everywhere because the cost of trying to do all that. So they supposedly put it into the law, no cold storage is necessary or allowed.
I must tell you that I'm not aware to that,
Okay.
but remember, Canadian, most of those requirements, is the way I understand it, and I was in Portugal last week and I just spoke with someone about that, is that we're talking about the recreational market, okay? Most of the Canadian local market is recreation market, it's not medical.
Yeah.
I think that for the medical, they do, and for sure for export, they do, okay? So because they have to adhere to the European.
Right, I was wondering, I would imagine.
The European requirements. But
right.
I think locally it's less than, not locally, for the recreational market, I think that they are less into, the temperature management or whatever. And another thing, maybe, when I'm talking with people in Canada saying, okay, how many days you have in Canada with extreme heat or whatever? I don't think it's a good argument. Never tell that to any authority. It's not a good argument. But I think that a lot of people are counting on that. But I can tell you that I know about the temperature excursion in Canada, maybe not 50 degrees Celsius, but 40 degrees Celsius. So you cannot count on the weather. That's the point.
Yeah, right. So as far as liability, this is kind of an issue that's starting to pop up here in the United States. So once you release the product, like you have taken it to where you need to take it to, does your company just take it to port and then whoever's picking it up, like you're in Australia or Germany, and then it gets distributed, or do you take it like straight to the pharmacy, or where do you end up? Where's your?
Usually, the way it works is it's through wholesalers, okay, or distribution companies, or storage facilities, okay. It is our obligation, okay. Most of our shipments are door to door, so we pick it up from the production or the cultivation site, and we bring it. We clear it export, we clear it import, and we deliver it to the destination. Usually not to pharmacies, okay, because pharmacies doesn't usually have import permits. Okay, the import permits come from the wholesalers and the distributors. They are the one who manage it. Then we have to bring it to their storage facility in Europe, always temperature control facility, same as pharma. And we check that they have licenses to store it, otherwise we are not delivering. So we check that they have licenses to store, and then we deliver to in your term, it will be the distribution center, okay? From there, it will go to the different pharmacies or hospitals or any other health, facilities. But usually we're not shipping into the pharmacy, okay? It goes one step behind it. the distribution center or the wholesaler or the distributing company, they manage their inventory, and they manage the local distribution. The last mile distribution is a little bit different business than the international one. It's more fragmented, but usually this is the way we do it. Most cases in Australia, in Germany, in UK, it's going there. In Israel, usually more or less the same thing. Okay, it can go to a production facility or to something like a distribution center.
Yeah.
All the rest of the world, to the best of my memory, it goes, as I said before, one step before the pharmacy.
Okay, so I'm thinking about, and like I was saying, what's starting to happen here is, where does the liability fall? Once or how do you protect yourself? Like, once it's left your hands, you've delivered to the distributor. What if they aren't keeping proper temperature? What if the flour dries out or the concentrates become not shelf stable or whatever? Like you've ruined a whole pallet of product. Are you finding that a lot of the countries that you're delivering to in the distribution centers, do you go in and check beforehand? How do you verify that you've delivered to a place that's going to then carry it properly to the end product and stuff?
So it's not just a matter of liability, it's more a matter of responsibility. Okay. And I'm saying it because this is the way it works. So first of all, just that you know, we also provide insurance coverage. So if something goes wrong along the way, there is the insurance covering the value of the shipment. The insurance is covering all risks, including temperature excursions and everything. So in terms of coverage or financially, the shipper or the buyer are covered. Now, basically, there are always agreement between the buyer and the seller, okay, with the split of responsibilities. The shipper might be responsible X works, so once he delivered to the trucking company, whatever it is done, or it can be responsible to up to the distribution center. Okay, it's a matter of responsibilities. From regulatory point of view, okay, the integrity of the products are the responsibility of the shipper, of the producer. Okay, they set the rules, they set the requirements, they're telling what is the temperature range, whatever, how you should keep the integrity of the products, up to distribution center. From that point on, including the pharmacies, it's the responsibility of the distributor or the wholesaler, but the responsibility of the product is still with the manufacturer. For instance, if, God forbid, something goes wrong, someone, like in the pharma world, right? If you have a complaint, someone took Tylenol and whatever, it goes to it's a responsibility of the manufacturer to investigate it, to see what's going on, maybe to take them back, to
Recall, yeah.
A recall, whatever. So the product itself, the efficacy of the product and the safety of the product, it's always the responsibility of the manufacturer. But in terms of keeping the conditions, usually it ends according to the agreement at the point where it goes from the responsibility of the shipper to the responsibility of the buyer. And it can be at the airport, it can be at the destination airport, it can be the distribution center, it's a matter of agreement. Each agreement, it's not just about the cost, it's also about the quality. Okay, what are the quality requirements and how it will be packed, how it will be delivered, and so on and so on. So our company is working under the umbrella of the GDP regulations, but also sometimes with specific requirements of either the shipper or the buyer, or the seller or the buyer, according to their specific requirements. Remember that on top of everything we're talking, there are laboratory tests and COVAs, and there's a lot of documentation around the product themselves. So it's not just picking up a pallet and ship it, okay? It's not T-shirts. It's a medical product, so it requires a lot of
Testing the way.
issues around it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was bringing this up because there was just a big product recall in one of our states, Colorado, with a bunch of different products, but a big recall. And one of the companies is saying, no way, I have a COA proving when it left this lab that it was at this quality. So now it's becoming that whole battle. But I'm thinking, here in the United States, as we're in this rec market and it's going in hot trucks and somebody's car and, this and that, it's this is a lot of product lost.
I agree with you. I
Yeah,
definitely agree with you. It's something back in my days in
yeah,
Teva, we also discussed it a lot. But yes, I agree with you. The
yes.
last mile logistics or the last mile is something that is not that controlled or that managed, but it's still the responsibility of according to the regulations of the producer. And you know what? Sometimes, with let's say cold products, okay, like injections, it's better when the pharmacy is putting it in a bag with ice, and give it to their customer. It's better than what happened before the pharmacy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
managing it better than.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of nailed it really. And what's happening here also is that last mile, we don't have proper infrastructure yet. The guys in the manufacturing are not going to accept the cultivators bringing in bad weed. It's all going to be manipulated until it goes out, but it's that last mile that you're talking about. And that's my question is, I know your company is
Think
obviously
about mail. Think about mail, right? You can get
main.
products in mail.
Oh yeah, mail. I know. Oh, it's the big fight Germany was just having is that I don't know if that resolved yet, but they didn't want to do mail order anymore or
It's not exactly the mail. You're basically right. There are several companies in Germany that you can call them. Okay, it's an online service. You fill a form. Sometimes you're being interviewed, and then you get a prescription, and next morning you're getting the products. Okay, so the German, the German government say, I want to make sure that you see the patient, that you interview him face to face, not just mail. Just because of a form or something, you can give them a prescription. So it's more about the prescription. But yes, the goods can go either by a delivery person or.
yeah, it's sitting in a hot truck under a bunch of mail. It's going to degrade. It's a fact. Concentrates will degrade. Flour will degrade. You're going to lose all those terpenes in this
Yeah,
medical
the
market.
good news, it's usually short term, short time, but it can take a few days, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow. I never thought of it. That's a really good point. And how, in your perception, I don't even know if you've really gone this far or you really see it, but do you think that the pharmacies, because they're the main, they're the end point, and they're compounding in Germany. Do you think that, they have this oil and they're compounding? Are they proper? Do you think there's proper storage in these
I
thousands of
think so. Yeah,
pharmacies?
I think that in Germany they're very strict with that. Okay,
Okay.
even the last mile delivery has to be with temperature control, and I believe that again, it's not that I did audits in pharmacies in Germany, but I believe the government there and the regulations there are very, very strict. So, and people, remember what confused the US is because you have recreation and medical. In Germany, it's just medical. So there's no confusion, you know what I mean? Because if you
Yeah,
go, I remember I was in a conference in Las Vegas, okay? MJBiz, right? And I went into a dispensary dispensary shop. How do you call it? Dispensary.
dispensary. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a window for the medical, and then you have a table or open to the public for the recreation. So I believe it may confuse you. In Germany and in other countries in Europe, in other countries in the world, it's just medical. So the whole state of mind is medical. So the same way they treat medicines, they treat medical cannabis. Can I 100% be sure about it? I didn't audit it, so I don't know. But I believe that they are very strict on that because it's medical and the authorities are watching that carefully.
Yeah. One of the other problems we're having here is lab testing manipulation, where they're saying, because, it could be for different things, but particularly here, to get the best price in the market, the consumers are demanding high THC products. It's not about the terpenes and all that kind of stuff. So, brands are going with labs are happy to take your money and they'll up, the THC. It's a very, very big problem. So you're not getting what you think you're getting, and, you don't know now how to dose properly and all that kind of stuff. But it's rampant across states, and regulators are state by state. We don't have a federal oversight. Is there do you see any issues in that happening in Germany or other countries like?
It's not exactly my area, but to
Yeah.
the best of my knowledge, by the way, even here in Israel, okay,
Uh-huh.
they they imposed the methods of how to measure the THC levels, okay, and everybody has to adhere to the same methods and to the same parameters and measure it exactly the same, because you can always say, well, my product is 29% THC, blah, blah, blah. So now they standardize the methods and the parameters, and also they set the how should I call it, the ranges of THC, okay? For instance, in Israel, it's 22, which can go between 20 to 24 or something like that. So they really strict it out. And also, I know that in Germany and other countries in Europe, they impose methods how to measure the THC levels without playing too much games, because, there is THCA and THC and, all kinds of tricks. So they measure the total THC content, but it has to be according to measurements and parameters and methods. Do I think that it's working all the time the same in each country? Probably not. But in some countries, they are more strict around that than in others. And it's not just that parameter. There's several types of parameters. For instance, the humidity, so you can play with that because it even influences the weight and all kinds of things. So I think that a lot of countries standardize that, including the parameters and the methods how to calculate it. But it's not my real profession.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I kind of was
I
just
think
curious.
that standardization, even in the US, even within the state, I'm not talking about between states, but even within the state, it has to be very clear. And everybody knows that actually each manufacturer can choose his own laboratory, right? So
Yeah.
so it has to be standardized in a way, again and again and again. Sorry, Pen, to say it. Remember, we're talking medical. When it goes to recreation, is a little bit
Yeah,
more
I
open,
know.
I would say.
I wish we would do it. It just feels so much like getting more quality cannabis. We're really falling behind on that. Like, think too many people are, finding loopholes.
That's the point. Listen, you know what happened in Germany, right? Last year, in 1st April last year, they made a decision that it will be easier to get a prescription. Okay? At that point, until today, the German market is 5 or more times as bigger than it was. Right? Why? Because people preferred to get a medical grade product than to buy it on the black market. Okay, so everybody went to the doctors, got a prescription, and buy it on the legitimate, or not, sorry, not the legitimate, the medical channel. Maybe pay a little bit more, but make sure that you're getting a product which is safe, which is quality, which is was grown in the right way without any pesticides. So
Listen, that's
this is the way to do it.
Yeah, and that's the mentality of the consumer I believe, in the United States, and it only continues to grow, is they're always looking for clean products, meaning
Correct.
not all this crap in here or these, things that can harm us. So anyway, that's, and GMP certification is used as a benchmark for quality. And that's why I wish we would here go into that. And then I guess do you see any innovation in any packaging as far as packaging for preservation, in this when you're transporting? Like, for instance, there's a couple companies here in the US that one company that controls the atmosphere in the bag when it's packaged, and it actually helps cure it. So it's like this curing keeps it stable, the atmosphere is stable. So this one company called Grove Bags. I'm sure there's other companies that do it also. Some others are doing like nitrogen washing, where they put it into the bag to preserve it and hold that temperature. I'm just curious if they're in the packaging world and preservation, if you've seen anybody doing any sort of innovative products.
I think in general, the answer is no. I'm not aware to
Okay.
any about that. I know that the packaging with the bag to clean it, to a little bit vacuum, just a little bit. Don't vacuum too hard because then you kill the flowers. But in general, the way we preserve temperature is after the packing of the in the bags. Okay. Usually, internationally, bulk flowers are going with a half kilo or 1 kilo bag. It's not the 10 grams, that is going to the market. So we protect it with all kind of measures. Told you PCMs or containers or thermal covers, everything that we think may help us to keep the temperature. I think that the nitrogen and the other thing is a little bit. I just read an article or saw something on LinkedIn that someone is washing the flowers with something, and someone else said it's not legal because you cannot cure damaged flowers with any kind of material because it's not pharma grade. Okay, remember again. So I don't know what kind of materials they put in or whatever they do, whether it influenced the medical side or the medicinal characteristic of the flower. So I'm not aware to all those techniques, but again, medical is medical. If it's part of your GMP, you're good. If not, don't do it.
Yeah. Bottom line. Okay. Yeah, we got to get in that mind. So I guess winding down, I feel like we've covered everything. As far as like to make your life easier and to make things more streamlined in the international transportation, besides fragmented regulation, is there anything else where you feel like we need, like the supply chain is not solid for you to, compared to how you ran the pharmaceutical industry?
So I I would not say that something that may fix whatever. The point is really to make sure that you're adhering to the regulations and to the quality requirements of medical product. I think that most of for sure, the big companies, but more and more companies, some of them were already on your podcast, our customers without names. So they, when I began to work with this industry, I usually said to myself, nothing that I told my customers, but when I walk into a medical cannabis company and I see quality people, usually from the pharma world, I know that they are in the right direction, okay? Because remember, people that grew vegetables or whatever, and all of a sudden decided that the cannabis is a good opportunity, and now they are growing cannabis. It's not the same, okay? So bottom line is that more and more the world, okay? And by the way, I was in a conference in Portugal, and someone says over there that she is against, the medicalization of cannabis because, everybody can put in his body whatever he wants, and there's a lot of argument around alcohol and, and cigarettes and whatever. But as we see it today, it's a medical market, and you have to adhere to that. The nice thing about this market is that it all grew from the bottom. What I mean is that none of the government came one morning and said, okay, guys, enjoy the party, smoke as much as you. It's not that way. People didn't find cure. There were illnesses without any medicines or with the lack of medicines. And this is where the medical cannabis grew. And this is where the medical cannabis, actually the public pushed the governments to take decisions about that.
Right.
When this happened, most of, we have a say, we say that if you don't know what to do, you do what you know. It's not a good idea, but it's, something. So the government, a lot of them doesn't know what to do. They don't want to use cannabis for good reason. So they want to, above an age or something. They want it safe. They want it proven as efficient medicine. This is why you have all those projects in France and in Switzerland and in some other studies that you see around the world. So they want all this, but they're still not sure exactly how to manage that. Look at I will not say bad things, but look at what happened in Germany with the clubs. They wanted to establish clubs. Nobody even understand exactly what is the meaning of all this thing. They have clubs in Spain, which are completely different. They tried to do something for the recreational area. Government really confused. This is why you see so many regulations around. But at the bottom line, as long as it's a medicine, and as long as you need a prescription for that, you have to adhere to the medical rules. As simple as that. And remember, I would say one last thing. When you ship flowers, medical cannabis flowers, you ship, material, how do you call it? Flowers are agricultural product. Okay? How many products you have in the pharma world which are agricultural product? In Teva, I had one out of hundreds of thousands of products. I had one. Okay, this is something that people doesn't understand, because all of a sudden you have to deal with the Ministry of Agriculture, and now you have to deal with the Ministry of Health because of its cannabis, and the DEA, and all those agencies that are dealing with narcotics. It makes it more and more complex, because it's a medical product, but it's still a flower, okay? So you just add more complexity to the whole thing. But the bottom line is that you have to really be a professional and understand what you do, and make sure, not just, I have a license from the Israeli authorities, okay? But I want to make sure that my customers are not making any mistakes, because it's their licenses as well. So it's a lot of investment in understanding the regulations, the requirements, the quality, the safety, the security, all together to build the right supply chain and long-term supply chain, not just one shot and that's it. You want to build something that will work each time, consistency. It's curing people. People want the same exact product each time. So there you go. We didn't cover too much the hemp, and we didn't cover too much the CBD, which is also a big thing. Okay? But a different market. It's not the medical market. It's a different thing, but it's a big thing in the US as well.
Yeah. Is that considered more like the herbal medicine market?
You're talking about CBD?
CBD, yeah. Like,
well,
if you
depends, there's 6 types of CBD products. It can be edibles, it can be creams, it can be even, I think in the US as well, but in Europe there are products, veterinary products based on CBD.
Yeah.
And then and you can put it in drinks, and there's a lot of CBD. By the way, there are even CBD cigarettes in the market. You know why? I was laughing when I heard it, but they told me that people are smoking during the day because they have to work. They smoking CBD products or hemp, and then in the evening they smoke THC. And hemp also is an issue, because some countries, the US consider hemp, there's industrial hemp, right? So leave that aside. But in Israel, for instance, hemp is under the same narcotic law exactly as marijuana. There's no difference. There's no difference between hemp
It
And
should not be. Yeah, I mean, that's our
right,
problem too. We are so
yeah.
screwed up here. God,
So,
I feel like we're inching closer to getting deregulation. The rumor has it. But if our market opens up for export, we're far away from that. So I don't think, we need to get our own house in order. We're
yeah,
just,
without going into politics, okay? The redhead guy in the White House can wake up in one morning and change the whole thing, right?
oh
By the way,
yeah,
the whole world is waiting for that.
I know.
Importing, exporting, it will change the whole market of medical cannabis. But you know, the US, right? Federally, it's forbidden, states, and so on. So we'll have to wait and see.
I know, it's very exciting. And then I do just have one more question is because you came from pharma. Where do you see in the world, like you're seeing all these places exporting and do all this stuff, and people are working on cannabis as a medicine, I know SOMI International Pharmaceutical, I've talked to them a lot, they're doing the herbal medicine route, um, preparation, I guess, for pharmaceutical. Do you think in the US, like that's a route that SOMI could take into the United States if things start opening up, like as an herbal route, or like
I
how
don't
does?
want to. I don't want to talk specifically about any company. I
Oh
know
yeah, no,
some
no, no,
very
yeah,
well.
forget
I know
that.
Michael Sosno.
Yeah,
Sosno.
yeah,
I
yeah, no,
just met
no, no,
him.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
without that. I truly think, first of all, under the ground, well, maybe even not underground, under the surface, and Daddy Meiri knows that very well. There are a lot of clinical trials and studies around cannabis and around cannabis products. I personally, that there's one product, the Pidolex, that was already FDA approved. I truly believe that companies without names are developing their own formulation, okay, to meet customer needs. Right now, okay, if you're getting we call it T20C4, right? 20% THC and 4% CBD. It's kind of commodity, right? A lot of people has,
yeah,
flowers and
two
oils
to
and whatever.
one, yeah,
But I think that the formulation, the specific formulation for specific treatments, this will be the future of the cannabis. Of course, it has to be supported by science. It has to be regulated, not regulated, registered as products. Whether they will call it herbal medicine or maybe they call it like in the UK, food. How do you call it?
oh yeah,
Um,
food,
whatever food.
yeah, that one, I know,
It's also half of a joke, right? So
yeah,
again, remember I told you government doesn't know what to do, so they call it something, right?
yeah,
But in
yeah,
the end of the day, I believe that the market will go to more specific formulation, like pharma, to more specific
indications,
illnesses, to more specific treatments. I truly believe so. So it will not just be, kind of a, you know,
yeah,
T20C4 or T15C10, or whatever the case is, it will be more specific. I believe
yeah,
so. And also remember, in Germany and other countries, markets are going more to oils than to flowers because,
yeah,
hey, you
health
don't
research,
smoke in order to be healthy, right?
right,
So more and more governments, by the way, in Israel is the same. They are encouraging oils on top of flowers. And this is where in oils you can control better, the formulation and the treatment and the dosage and everything. So I believe that this is where the industry is going. It will take time, but I truly believe
yeah,
it.
yeah, I do too, yeah, it's great.